back to On the Money. I'm Rob Herdig. I'm here with my good friend Brian Quaranta. Brian, how we doing?
Rob, how are you? Good to see you as always.
Man, always good to see you. Love being here. Love talking about this stuff with you. I know it's vitally important.
Yeah, well, Social Security is vitally important.
Yeah, so the funny thing, you said Social Security. For some people, that's like a dirty word, right? They hear Social Security and they think it's for who?
We have people without money.
But you and I are only talking about one group of people here.
Yeah, the people with money need to understand how to do Social Security because they are the ones that can benefit the most from some of the maximization strategies.
They also have the most to lose by not getting it right.
Yes.
The guys that don't have any money, that haven't saved, they've got nothing to lose,
They've
right?
got nothing to lose.
And we're not talking to them. If you want to plan, if you're a guy that hasn't saved for retirement and you want to plan with Social Security, tell them what it is.
Just work as long as you can.
Save
work
as much
as you can and delay, and save as much
So
as
we've gotten that part out of the way.
Yeah.
People, if you don't have any money, we're not talking to you. If you have other assets, we actually are.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying if you don't have money, we don't want to talk to you because we do want to help you.
It's just as far as the Social Security maximization goes, they've taken so many of the strategies away that the only way you can really maximize it is actually to delay and utilize other assets.
That's actually a really good segue into the next point here, Brian, because a lot of people say, what do I care? Social Security hasn't changed. But it has changed multiple times.
Oh, multiple times. Yeah, I mean, it's changed in what, 83, right?
Yeah.
Reagan first taxed it in 83. It was supposed to not be taxed. Roosevelt said it wouldn't be taxed, right?
Yeah.
He said as long as I'm alive,
right,
it'll never be taxed.
He didn't want it to ever be taxed, so it was his intent, right?
Yes. So 83, it got taxed, right? And then Clinton taxed it again, in the 90s. And so now we've got 50% all the way up to 85% of the Social Security becoming taxable.
And not only that, in 2015 with the Bipartisan Budget Act, they voted to take all your filing strategies away.
Right. And that was a big one. They did that at night when nobody was watching.
So it was almost like an increase in taxation on the benefit or a reduction of benefit, right? Now they're talking about a big change in 10 to 15 years, right? Because they're worried about it being insolvent.
Yeah, well, that's why we created the Retirement Readiness Report and the Social Security Maximization Report, because people need to know how this all fits into the puzzle for the retirement planning, because it takes into account everything, Rob.
Yeah.
You can't just isolate out this as, let me go to Social Security's website, let me figure out my calculation and figure out my delaying. There's so many other pieces of the puzzle, including how do you utilize your other assets, because you've got 85% of the people today retiring without pensions, and they're retiring with 401ks, which replace the pensions. So now how do you work that into a strategy that actually helps you maximize your Social Security?
So I was thinking about the people that are retiring today, and the biggest percentage of retirement or of society that's ever retired in the United States is retiring now, right?
Right.
The boomer generation.
Yeah.
And there's so many moving pieces, and the normal person's retired for 18 years, the average person. And that average person maybe sees one downturn market, two during that 18-year period.
Yep.
What are we facing right now?
Well, it's the worst time we've ever seen in history. We've got rising interest rates, right? We've got volatile markets.
Yeah.
It's a very scary time. The worst time to start taking money out of your retirement accounts, by the way, is when the market's going down.
Right.
Right? So you got to be very careful in the way that you approach retirement, or even if you're in retirement, you got to rethink about how you might be taking income.
Right.
Because if you're taking income from a portfolio that's invested in the market and you're down right now, you could actually be increasing the probability of yourself running out of money sooner than later.
Right. If you're taking from a portfolio that you have massive gains on too, there's tax consequences for that.
Right.
There's things that people aren't looking at, and all this stuff works together. These things are not independent; they're interdependent. Right.
That's right. That's right. And and I'll tell you, the reason why people don't really take Social Security serious is because when they talk to everybody, they say delay, right? Well, that's not an answer. Delaying is not an answer. We really have to figure this out mathematically, and this is why we developed the Social Security Maximization Report along with the Retirement Readiness Review, because people need to understand how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together so they can get a report laid out in front of them and figure out, okay, if I choose option A, B, or C, this is going to be the better approach. And the reality is everybody's situation is so different because the pension's gone away, and everybody has different amounts in their 401ks. Everybody's got a different health report, right? So not everybody is super healthy going into retirement either, and that plays a big role in it.
No, you're absolutely right. Has there ever been a more advantageous time in history to really put together a comprehensive retirement plan where you look at everything? You look at the Social Security Maximization Report, you look at your streams of income, you look at your tax efficiency. Tax code's on our side right now, right?
Yeah, the tax code's the lowest it's ever been. Think about how much they could be missing out on as far as additional income they could be getting, right? Or how much they could potentially lose in taxes by not getting this right.
So, what's interesting, when people look at Social Security, they only look at what I would lose in just my Social Security benefit by not filing at the right time.
Right.
But it's so much bigger than that.
It's so much bigger. How much more could you lose by having to take money out of your accounts too early? How much could you lose by not getting the tax strategy right and having to overpay in tax? taxes. Remember, up to 85% of the
Yeah.
Social Security benefit could become taxable. And so all of these things take into account. And the thing is that if you're going to maximize, the first thing you have to do is not lose.
Right. Well, what if your financial advisor, some professional or some guy at work told you to wait as long as you can to file, and meanwhile you're spending all your assets down at the same time? And what if you pass away right after that?
Right.
You've used all your assets.
Yes.
You've used none of their money, and you have nothing left for your children or your spouse.
That's right. And you've spent down your entire life savings that you spent the last 35, 40 years accumulating, sacrificing, not going on vacations, not spending time building memories with your family. Right now, if you get your Social Security and your income strategy right from your portfolio, this is where we could pay less in taxes. We could have more cash flow on a monthly basis to do the things we want to do to create more memories. Think about that. How many people out there are not creating the memories that they want to be with their families because they're afraid to spend their money because nobody's ever taught them how to properly take what they've accumulated over the course of their 35, 40 years worth of working, along with Social Security, and create a cash flow plan that actually maximizes the amount of money they get on a monthly basis.
Hey, I don't know if you want to tell this story or not, but you told me a story earlier about an 83-year-old who was scared to spend his money. Do you remember that?
I do.
Tell the story. I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's impactful.
He came in, I was talking to him about his RMDs and how much he was going to have to pay in taxes, and he had over $3 million. And he started crying. And he said, you know, Brian, he says, this is a shame because I never spent any of this money. I never did anything because I was scared to spend it. I didn't know if I was going to run out or not. And now I'm finding out that 40% of my money is going to have to go to the IRS when I could have spent that money creating memories with my families, doing the things that I wanted to do.
It's terrible. So don't have fear of loss or fear of missing out. Have a plan and thrive. There's a way to do it, right?
Well, people are missing out. That's the thing. And they need to get their head out of the sand because they are missing out on figuring out what are the best strategies. And it's because nobody's ever taken the time to mathematically quantify it for them and show them an approach that actually gets them more than what they could get if they try to do it on their own. You ever try to go to Social Security and do an analysis on their calculator?
And I'm in the business.
Yeah.
It's tough. There's a lot of parameters there.
Yeah, and you and I work with financial advisors all over the country, and it's very difficult. They tell us all the time that people come in and they're super confused on what to do. And most of the big box retail brokerage firms just tell them, oh, just delay it. Just delay it for as long as you can.
Because it's how they get paid. They're not worried about your plan.
Think
They're worried
about
about
it.
their
If
plan.
you tell someone to delay, Social Security, right? I mean, or delay taking their own money, right? That could potentially mean that, that what happens with these big box firms is they manage their money for so long they think it's actually theirs, right?
That's right. Hey, actually, I think that we're going to break right now and tell people what they can do. How can they prevent this all from happening? You have to look at everything. You can't just look at one thing.
Folks, the Retirement Readiness Kit, I mean, it's really the best thing you could possibly get. Call 1-888-382-1298. Scan the QR code down at the bottom. Get the Retirement Readiness Kit along with the Social Security Maximization Report.
Call 888-382-1298 to receive your complimentary Retirement Readiness Review and Social Security Maximization Report. Get the most from your Social Security payments. Find the strategy that maximizes your Social Security benefit and preserves the assets you've saved for retirement. Social Security seems easy, right? The question is, should you take it now or later? There are numerous ways to file for Social Security. The decisions you make can also affect how much you pay in taxes. You've paid into Social Security for decades. Now, get the most out of your Social Security benefit. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 for your complimentary Retirement Readiness Review and Social Security Maximization Report. Now you need to build that into a retirement income plan with all your assets. Call Brian and his team right now, 888-382-1298 to receive your complimentary Retirement Readiness Review and Social Security Maximization Report, or use the QR code on the screen to schedule your appointment today.
Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm Rob Herdig. Brian,
Rob, good to see you. I know we're talking about legacy planning today, huh? It's a big topic.
It is. It is a big topic, but I think people think about it incorrectly, or maybe they think about it in the wrong order, right?
Yeah.
People think about what do I want to do with my money once I'm gone,
right?
But they don't think about what comes first, and does my current plan get me to and through retirement?
Well,
right?
It's a great point, because if you think about how we get to estate planning, it all starts with the retirement plan itself, because what people don't realize is that the actual most important document they own is something called their beneficiary document.
Right.
And that beneficiary document comes on IRAs, Roth IRAs, 401ks, life insurance policies. And the way the law works is it says that document trumps every other document out there, including your will, your trust, all of that stuff.
You know what's a good example of that? Red Fox. Everybody knows who Red Fox is, comedian, Sanford and Son.
Yep.
When he passed away, which I guess it really wasn't all that long ago.
Right.
Within the last 10 years, probably. He'd been married a number of times throughout his life.
Right.
And his money, what was left from his life insurance, went to his ex-wife 2 times removed.
Yes.
I mean,
Right.
That's just a quick example of incorrect legacy planning or legacy planning that's never been updated, right?
How many people out there are being disinherited because of a wrong beneficiary form?
I've heard about the ex-wife story a multitude of times.
Multitude of times. I mean, I've met these people, right? And this is just in Western Pennsylvania. Think about what's going on nationwide.
Right.
And the courts have said that the beneficiary document will trump everything. So if you don't change it or you change it to the wrong person, I hate to tell you, it doesn't matter what your will or trust says, you're going to have problems where you want that money to go.
We've talked about Prince's estate too, and he really didn't leave his intentions, right? And now they're saying his $500 million estate is going to be eroded by 50%. That's $250 million, just because he didn't have a plan on the front side. And
Yeah.
I think there's some
Not only that, but think about how long he's been gone.
Oh, is it 10 years now?
I mean, it's been quite a while since he's passed.
It's been a long time.
I mean, and he's still caught up in the courts at this point.
So you're not just losing out to probate, you're also losing because you're missing out on time value of money.
Time value of money, right.
It's crazy. And everybody in the audience is probably saying, hey, they're talking about Prince and Red Fox. We're just normal people. That doesn't apply to us, right? Wrong.
Well, the normal people are the ones that get hurt the most.
Right. They make the same estate planning mistakes,
yes,
right?
the average person is who gets hurt the most because they're actually making bigger mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, because they're not reviewing these things. They're not taking inventory of where their current retirement plans are at and their strategies and their beneficiary documents, and they're not tying it together into the overall estate planning. And there's a lot that you can do on the retirement planning side, especially when it comes from a tax planning perspective,
Right.
to eliminate taxation at death and go from taxable accounts to tax-free accounts that will pass on tax-free to your families. Plus, people don't think about the opportunity of actually leaving money now versus later.
Right.
You know, so people say, well, I want to leave my kid $1 million when I die, all right?
Yeah.
Let's just say it's $100,000 when you die. Well, maybe $10,000 right now could make a big difference in the kid's life versus $100,000 when the kid's 65 or 70. Maybe $100,000 could make a big difference in the kid's life right now versus $1 million when they're 65 or 70.
Right.
So again, the child has more time to do things with that money, you know, to create opportunity, whatever that might be.
It's funny. There's people in the audience that are listening, and they're saying, hey, either I have an estate plan, I don't need another one.
Right.
Well, have you reviewed it or updated that lately?
Yeah.
Because it needs to be reviewed and updated. And you also need to double check it to make sure it still works with the goals that you had for your other retirement assets, right?
That's right.
Do they still mesh? Are they communicating? Are they talking together? Are they accomplishing the goals you wanted them to accomplish, right?
Look, absolutely. Look, my wife and I, we just had another child, right? So we had to go back to the drawing board and we had to update our documents. We have another child. And these life events, right? Whether you have another child, another grandchild, lose a spouse, those are times when you really have to think through what that estate planning is going to look like. But again, I think where folks get it wrong is they think about estate planning, wills, trusts, powers of attorney, living wills, all that stuff. They think about that separately from the retirement planning, and they actually are one and the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about celebrities and retiring and retirement mistakes and estate planning mistakes. Let's talk about somebody that did it right. You brought it up to me earlier.
Oh, George Steinbrenner. Wait, was that George Steinbrenner, right?
Yes,
The
George
Yankees?
Steinbrenner, yeah.
He died at the right time?
Yeah.
What was that? What year was that? 2010, I think it was?
Yeah, it wasn't too long
There
ago.
was no estate tax at that point.
Timed
Federal
it-
estate tax.
He timed it perfectly. Some people thought he did it with intention, right?
With intention.
But when we look at what's
Yeah.
going on right now from a
Right.
number of standpoints, when we look at
Right.
the exemption when it comes to passing on
What is it, 22 million
22
right now?
million, and how low has it been?
Yeah, it was as low as 600,000, I think, at one point.
Not that
right?
long ago.
Yeah.
Then where else is it advantageous right now to do planning?
Yeah, well, you know,
Taxation, right?
Taxation's always advantageous, right? Especially when you can get rid of the IRS from your life for good.
You want to disinherit somebody here. We're talking about estate planning. Disinherit the IRS.
Well, think about it. Most people go to bed every night without doing any tax planning, right? With the IRS being the largest shareholder of their estate.
They're a business partner.
They're a business partner, and any day they can wake up and they can find out that the IRS has just voted them a larger partner of their accounts. That's unbelievable to me that that's even legal for them to do.
It is a legislative risk. It's a risk that you have no control over.
That's right. One day they could just wake up and say, you know what, we're not taking 30% of your account anymore, we're taking 40%. If you don't think that's possible, it just has to deal with tax rates. If tax rates go up, it just means they become a larger partner in that account.
Right.
Right? So today they could have had a 30% share, tomorrow they could have a 40% share, 50% share, 60% share. What are you going to do when they become the largest shareholder?
Right.
Right? So these are the problems that need to be solved. And this was why our retirement readiness report that we're offering here today on the show is so important, because it's going to go over all of these key areas. It's going to look at your income, your taxes, your investments, your healthcare strategy, your legacy planning strategy, and it's going to tie it all together so that when you plan on leaving this money to your family members, you're going to maximize it not only now, but you're going to maximize it also later. I want you to call right now, 1-888-382-1298, and when they pick up the phone, I want you to tell them that you want your complimentary retirement readiness review. Schedule that today with us. But I want to share one other thing with you. You know, when you think about estate planning in general, right? And you think about just basic documents, most people just think about like a will and a trust, right?
Sure.
I mean, think about what a trust is designed to do. Most people don't realize that their largest asset, probably their IRA, their 401k, can't go into a trust.
Right.
Right? Because if it does, it becomes taxable. So how do you protect that now?
Right.
How do you protect that? And that's the big question that people need answers to, right? And that's
There's strategies today they can use today, though, where they know the rules, right?
This is why, you know, if you got a planner, go see these folks, talk to them, you know, hold their feet to the fire to come up with a plan for you. You deserve the very best for your family.
When it comes to taxes and estate planning, it is not a static state. It changes, right?
Correct. That's right.
And right now is the best time in history to take advantage of it, right? It's
Absolutely.
a scary thing to look in the eye. You know, nobody wants to look at their own death.
No, they don't.
And what happens when they're not here.
That's right.
It's hard to imagine a world where you're not in it, right?
It's not. And folks, that's why you want this retirement readiness report. Again, call 1-888-382-1298. Again, it's going to go over your income, your taxes, your investments, your healthcare plan, and your legacy plan. It's going to show you how all of this ties together so you can create a taxable estate and bring it to a tax-free estate. And these are very important things, because the last thing we all want is for the IRS to become our largest shareholder. Don't let that happen to you and your family. Don't lose out. Call today, 1-888-382-1298, and get your complimentary retirement readiness review today.
Call 888-382-1298 right now for your own retirement readiness review. Having a clear path to retirement is more than just your savings. This review will include a complete risk analysis on your portfolio, an in-depth fee analysis to determine how much you are and could be paying on those investments, a tax reduction report, and lastly, we'll look at healthcare and legacy planning for you and your estate. To begin your retirement readiness review, call Brian and his team at 888-382-1298 or use the QR code to schedule your appointment today. Whether your retirement is coming soon or you want to be certain you can stay retired, the Retirement Readiness Review will help guide you through your financial planning needs. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298, or use that QR code to schedule your meeting today.
Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm your host, Brian Quaranta, and in studio today with me is my good friend, Rob Hertig. Rob, how are you today?
Man, I always love being here. I'm doing great.
Well, you know, for those of you that don't know, Rob is actually a consultant with hundreds of advisors all over the country. And, you know, you've worked with our firm on many things, but, you know, you get to see all over the country kind of what's going on and how things are being solved. And I think one of the biggest things we're dealing with right now is risk. We're start to the stock market in what, 40 years?
Right.
Bond market, we're start to the bond market in 30, is that right?
So 30, and since the Great Depression, I believe. Yeah. So, I mean, these are drastic.
30 years and the Great Depression.
Drastic times.
Yeah.
And to clarify, I work with independent firms. So I work with firms like yours that aren't beholden to anybody, that are completely independent and can make recommendations that are the best suited for the client, not the best suited for the firm, but the best suited for the client. So, yeah, you're all correct. But I did feel like I needed to correct.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I really don't think people really understand how to define risk. I mean, you know, at Secure Money Advisors, we define risk. It's very simple. If it can go up in value or down in value, it's risky.
Right.
Period, bottom line. And the reason I say that is because you can look at positions right now, bond positions, that are typically used as safer positions.
Right.
You got a 20-year Treasury bond ETF right now.
Sounds safe.
Sounds safe, AAA rated.
Right.
Down over 20% on the year.
It's insane.
Well, here it gets even worse, because it's only yielding a little over 1%. So your yield is a little over 1%, and you've just lost over 20%.
Right.
So this is the type of things that people are dealing with right now, where they're taking losses right before retirement or in retirement when they really can't afford to take a loss.
And maybe those losses are bigger and deeper than they thought they were going to be because their definition of risk didn't align with what their financial advisors did, right?
Yeah.
It really does matter where you came from, where you cut your teeth in this business. Your definition of risk is totally based on that.
Well,
right?
I can relate to that because you go back to 20 years ago, well, probably going on 23 years ago now.
Yeah.
When I first got in the business, I was working for the big box firms. I looked at risk differently 23 years ago than I do today,
Right.
because I was taught differently. And what I didn't realize is that when you're focused on helping somebody retire, the strategies and techniques that you use to help them grow their money are not the same strategies and techniques you use to help them retire. The game changes completely.
There's different specializations, right?
There's different specializations. And for the last 16, 17 years of my career, all we've done is focused on retirement planning, where the number one priority is to protect the retirement lifestyle.
Right.
And I see so many people today that come into our office that are not protecting the retirement lifestyle first. Once they protect the retirement lifestyle, they could certainly take as much risk as they want with the money that they can afford to take risk with. But so many people are taking risk with money they can't afford to lose.
It's amazing that this even concept of being different types of financial advisors that have different expertise, that it's foreign to people, because if you have a foot problem, you go to the podiatrist, you don't go to the general practitioner, right? But we do it with our money.
Yeah, we certainly do.
It's really interesting. And not only that, we should be demanding that our understanding of risk and what we have stand to lose is the same, that we align perfectly with the financial advisor. Right? But it doesn't happen, Brian.
Yeah. I've always said it's really easy for somebody else to tell you to risk their money. Or for you to say, it's okay to risk your money, especially if you get paid a commission to do it.
Right.
Or they have no consequences if it doesn't work out.
Right.
Because it seems like the only answer that people get a lot from the big box firms if they lose money is, don't worry about it, hang in there, it's just a paper loss, you're in it for the long haul.
Right.
And I always think, gosh, if you're retired, how much long haul do you really have left? I mean, most people spend maybe 20 years in retirement on average, 18 years in retirement on average.
Hey, so you have a baby.
Yeah.
When it cries, what do? Put a pacifier in its mouth?
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. Those words it's a pacifier for a financial advisor. Like,
they're managing the emotion.
Let me put this in your mouth real quick. Let's talk about the real problems that are associated with it. Let's not pacify it. Let's talk about it and let's fix it, right?
Yeah, and I think ultimately, on the flip side of all of this, if you really think about it, there's also a safe way to lose money too, though.
There is.
Because look at what's happening with banks, right?
Yeah.
Banks don't want to really pay us to have our money with them anymore. 0.10% for a checking account, maybe 0.20% if you get a money market. By the way, if you just look at the dollars, equate that to dollars on $100,000 at 0.10%, you're earning what, $100 a year in interest?
Yeah.
$100 a year in interest. But if inflation's at
9.1,
you're losing $9,000.
Yeah, I think most checking and savings accounts pay 10 basis points. So you're about, you're
10
right.
basis points.
We're losing money safely.
You're losing money safely, especially when inflation's so high, right?
So with the vantage point I have and working with so many offices across the country, I'll share a quick story. And this is a real story. And this is not intended to scare people, or maybe it is. If it scares you in a meeting with somebody, then great, right?
Yeah.
But this really happened, and I'm hearing these stories over and over again. I've got a firm I work with in the Midwest, and this firm had a prospect come in, and this prospect had lost 70% of their money, 70%.
Wow. Right. Yeah.
These people were 70 years old. Okay, so they lost 70% at 70 years old. Okay, these people came into the person I works with office in tears, literally crying.
Yeah,
and he did a Riskalyze report on them.
Right.
And he found out their risk score is about 24. Tell the audience what that means.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up because most people don't know how to quantify risk.
Right.
Wall Street has had people believing that there's conservative, moderately conservative, aggressive, moderately aggressive, right?
You fall into the bucket, right?
You fall into this bucket,
No.
but there's a real mathematical risk score that can be used. And it's on a scale from 1 to 99, right? So the higher the risk score, 99 being the highest risk that you can possibly take, you're going to be, when we evaluate your portfolio and we plug in these data points, it'll actually give us a report back showing what that risk score is.
So 24.
But you take a quiz first, right? And the quiz says that based on how you answered these questions, Your risk score is a 24, right?
Yeah.
And what was their actual portfolio risk score?
They were in leveraged investments. Their score was off the charts. I mean, it was 100. If there was 100 on the
It would
score,
be there.
it would be 100.
Yeah.
And these people were 70 years old and lost 70% of their assets. So if you have $1 million, now you have 300,000. This gentleman had to go back to work at 70 years old.
You hear these stories, and what happens is people are losing money at the wrong times,
Yeah.
and they're having to go back when they really don't have the physical capability of going back to work.
No more human capital at that
There's
point.
no
right?
more human capital.
Right.
Who wants to go back to work at 70, 80 years old? And unfortunately, you're not going to run out of money in the first 5 years of retirement.
Yeah.
You're going to run out of money in the years that you're much older,
When you
and
need
you really when you need it, and you really don't have that human capital to go back to work, or the want to go back to work. So, folks, here's what I want to share with you. If you're listening and you have money in a 401k or an IRA, you need to call and schedule your complimentary retirement readiness review right now. Call 1-888-382-1298, and you're also going to get a complimentary risk report so we can actually evaluate your risk score. Don't kick the can down the road. Don't procrastinate on this. This is really important. Call 1-888-382-1298 or scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen and schedule with us now. Thanks for watching.
Call 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles per hour if 40 miles per hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment election since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Brian and his team at 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Do you know exactly how much risk you are taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk.